Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast with your host, Kareen Zutleger. Join us as we uncover the hidden thoughts, stories, and moments that help bring light to the healing power of truth and examine how silence can affect us mentally, physically, and spiritually. We'll also share profound stories, interviews, and transformative narratives to help release ourselves from the hidden and step into healing towards inner peace, joy, and fulfillment. Now, here's your healing strategist and host, Kareen.
Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast. And today I have a very, very, very special guest. Now, I know I say this all the time that my guests are really special, but this woman is super special because she not only is one of my sister friends, she is also a dual elite One Star Neuroencoding Specialist as well. And she is an amazing human being. And her name is Cindy Gould. And I am going to have her tell you even more about herself.
Thank you. And yes, I get to finally be on here with you, my sister friend that I love so much. And, some of you will giggle, but we've attempted this before and we end up chatty, and we catch up during our podcast time. So now we budgeted enough time. And so, I guess at the end of the day, you would say that I'm a victorious life strategist, a reinvention strategist. I am a breakthrough coach, a transformation coach. I'm really, though, a joy catalyst. And my goal is to help women who are stuck in the land of suck to create a juicy, succulent life by figuring out who they are, like really, why they're here, and what they are going to do about it. You're the hero of your own story. All you got to do is put your cape on and start flying. And I guarantee you that cape will work. So that in a nutshell is what I do. And I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
Yay! Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so, Cindy, you and I have talked about so many different things, and I know so many facets about your life. But how does, your life, anyways, relate to you creating the joy and fulfillment how did you get here where you are and being a joy catalyst?
Yeah, here's what's interesting. I think in order to, like, you never know how bad you feel till you feel good, right?
Mm, sure.
And in order to have that joy and really know what it was, I had to have some stuff that sucked. I mean, it's just, and part of it was even, whether it was sexual abuse as a kid or whether it was actually, even racially based abuse as a teenager. And what's interesting with that is you look at me now and I am Hawaiian and Sicilian. My skin is a little tan, but when I was younger, before I had children, my skin was a lot darker. The melanin in my skin, the more kids I had, the lighter my skin got. So weird. I had my children in Hawaii. I'm like, how is this possible?
I stole it all.
I lived at the beach, I remember when a few years ago, because obviously I don't live in Hawaii anymore. And a few years ago, I told my father I was going to tan. And my father's like, what, Puna, what? And I said, yeah, I'll give you my Hawaiian card back. I said, but but anyway, what's interesting is that going through some of those experiences, and especially like I remember this time, and it's really weird. I don't think until last year I actually told anybody about this ever. So, in alignment with Secret Keepers, I was in the 8th grade and we lived in Utah. And at that time, I had this curly hair because we didn't have product. So you've seen my hair. I have like this
Yeah.
gloss do, and we didn't have product. My sister and I would try to iron it on the ironing, the whole thing, right? Because that was a zillion years ago. Everybody looked kind of like Farrah Fawcett, that whole thing.
Okay. Okay.
And then it was heavily religious, state and environment. And so I was walking past a couple of these kids going into my school, interesting where I'm feeling this in my body even right now. Like it's like a
Yeah.
calm. So I'm glad I get to share it. And there were these two boys that were they were smoking. Now, you know me well enough to know like I don't smoke, I don't do things,
Yeah.
I'd never been drunk, any of that stuff. So, but in 8th grade, there was like, but I'm just this, happy la la girl. And I saw these two boys and I stopped for a second. I said, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And just a little just cheery, convo. I think back then too, there was a part of me knowing that they probably felt, like they didn't fit in and belong. And I was just wanting to give them a little bit of love. Okay.
Yeah.
I walk in the school and the shop teacher, I didn't take shop. He literally picked me up by my collar like this, threw me into the lockers and said, "What are you doing? You're not allowed to smoke. You're not allowed to do this stuff." I wouldn't even know how to light a cigarette. Like I didn't know anything, but he literally picked me up and threw me into the locker.
Oh
Like,
my goodness.
and I
Yeah.
was so shocked and traumatized by that. Like I was actually happy that I stopped and connected with those boys. I
Right.
didn't think anything of it. And I never shared that till last year. Talk about secret keepers, right?
Yeah.
I never
Right.
did because prior to that, I had had some sexual abuse and I shared and I got in trouble. And I
Okay.
remember even before any of that happened in the 5th grade, this is so interesting because it's interesting the things you think of. In the 5th grade, I was a girly girl, but I was a tomboy because I have 5 brothers. So, and I have
Yeah.
the coolest mom that would be out there throwing the football with us, all the things with both my parents. They taught us great ways how to play, as well as work really hard. But I was really great at sports. So when in the 5th grade, they, a lot of the girls didn't want to play with me, and I was a gymnast too, and I was pretty accomplished. So I played with the boys all the time. All of a sudden, my 5th grade teacher, because I was the only girl that played with boys, called the parents of the boys and called my parents in and said that I was doing naughty things with the boys. I didn't even know
Oh,
what
okay.
naughty
Oh
things
my
were.
goodness.
Naughty things with the boys and that they needed to keep their boys away from me and that my parents needed to rein me in. I didn't even know what that was, Corinne. Again, it was a bias because of
Yeah.
I didn't look like everybody else, right? And so they assumed that this little girl that looked Mexican, you know, and
You're a Hawaiian.
yeah, and I'm Hawaiian, and I'd be proud if I was Mexican. You know what I mean? It's like,
Whatever. Yeah.
yeah, whatever. But what's interesting is I say that because those are things that really shaped and affected me in ways that I didn't know they did
Sure.
until I was, you know, much older. And and it's like, don't be yourself because you get in trouble.
Sure.
Don't
Yeah.
don't laugh and giggle and have joy and happy because you get in trouble. Now, you've been around me well enough to know I couldn't hide joy if I tried. Like, and I couldn't as a kid. Like I couldn't, but I remember how I governed, like I was always cheerful and respectful and kind and all of that, because that's just, there's no way
Mhm.
to change that in me, which I'm glad. But I remember how I started to govern who got to really be in the giggly, joyful spots. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I very relatable because as a fellow tomboy, I definitely did not fit the mold for the girls, and I also played with the boys. I had a brother, and he and I we would run, jump, climb, and but my keeping my joy inside and keeping my authentic self inside was very conditioned from at home.
Right.
And then it just spilled out, right? So well, for me, it was like if I didn't feel safe letting people see who I really was, and that caused a whole host of issues. And so like I hear you saying, anyways, like these bias, and then maybe some bullying that occurred, um, they started to make you just kind of stuff down your light, right? It was easier to dim it than to face the repercussions of allowing yourself to shine brightly. And I believe we're all meant to shine. And
100%.
but right, that's why, the secret keepers, like we want to bring to light the things, bring them to the surface so that we can heal them. Because once they're out in the open, they hold less power over us than they do if they're stuffed inside of our bodies. And with that, right, I hear you saying that you could kind of feel it in your body. So I always ask, how did this secret affect you? Was it physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or all of the above, or a couple of the above? How did it affect you?
Yeah, so now when I felt it in my body just then, I'm really mindful of that. I actually felt it. I felt a freedom. I felt like this freedom in my body. So that was wonderful. How it affected me as a child was very much like what you said. I instantly felt like I was in trouble.
Yeah,
Like being myself gets me in trouble. And
sure.
that was so confusing because I came from a household where I was celebrated. And
Mm,
so when you go from being celebrated to feeling like you're not even being tolerated,
mm,
then that's, and I grew up in part of my childhood was in a very denominational religious environment, right?
okay.
And and I remember I was such like, and I'm gonna use the air quotes on purpose, but I was such a good girl. Like, I mean, from
Yeah,
all of that, so and I was taught to love others, and my parents taught me to live aloha. And I mean, and it doesn't matter if those kids are smoking. I don't know, smoking. I'm just giving them love. I mean, it's like,
yeah. Mm,
and let them do whatever they're going to do. And then to have that, I mean, it wasn't like I got reprimanded. I was literally picked up and thrown into lockers, and
yeah,
nobody was in that hallway, and I didn't say a word, not to my
sure.
parents, not to anybody. It was like, you say something, you're getting in trouble, or your
Yeah.
parents are going to get in trouble, or, and so how that affected me, it affected me. I still excelled and I still sparkled and shine, I would shine. And
Hmm.
yet I felt fearful by doing
Okay.
it. But there was a part of me like,
Mm,
um, that, that when I had opportunities, which I think this is a great byproduct in some ways, to let other people shine, I, I made it squeaky clean for them. Like,
mm,
you know what I mean? That didn't mean that I've never felt like I shine less because you're shining. You know what I mean?
right.
It's like,
Right. Yeah.
you're my BFF, you shine, I shine. You're my
Yeah.
husband, you
Yeah.
shine, I shine. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you're my sister friend, you shine, I shine. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And I knew that as a kid, but I know that what really affected me was I picked relationships that reflected you're going to get in trouble when you shine. And
Mm,
I didn't realize that
sure.
that's where it showed up in my life. I was in abusive relationship, abusive marriage. I mean, and not the more that I would sparkle and shine in that relationship or in those relationships, the more that I got, like, I would say in trouble, shut up or
Sure.
shut the F up or,
Yeah.
you're this or whatever, and then just hammer down. That's where it showed up in my life,
Mm,
not like in business or other places. It was really intimate. And so that even as I say that out loud, it just tells me of how much those wounds were very hurtful. You know,
sure. Absolutely. And it's amazing too how you just, right, you go through your life, and that, happened at such a young age, and you don't necessarily, you're not paying attention to it, but it's stored in there. And
right.
so it's in there, and despite our best efforts to because you just kind of shake it off and you move on and you're not really thinking about it, but it's just this little thing that can stop you from being able to move forward, like say in a career choice or having a successful relationship, that those events can keep you and block you because they become a belief system within you. And you're just like, what the heck, why can't I just, do this one thing? I just want to do this one thing and be, and have this success, but something stops you. It's, like, from moving forward. And that's where, the neuroencoding stuff that we do comes in, right? Can help us bring to the surface and then, get those things out,
Oh, yeah.
which is great. And
Oh, yeah.
then, um, we celebrate ourselves. It's so wonderful that you grew up in a home that you were celebrated, because
Oh,
that
absolutely.
I'm gonna actually say this out loud, but I believe that would put you in a minority right there, because I don't know a lot of people that were celebrated growing up. I really don't.
And
Um,
I feel
for
like I hit
you.
the parent lotto, you know?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
because
you
just like
did.
you, just like me, my parents were both come from a history in their lives of abandonment by parents and different people and lots of pain and lots of stuff, right?
Sure.
And the fact that they pulled it off the way they did and created such a legacy of love amongst, I honestly can say I don't remember one argument with my brothers. Now, my sister, I remember arguments. My brothers,
Yeah.
I don't though, and even to this day. And my niece and nephew were telling me that with my brother Ben, that have never, and I think their parents have been married, let's see, Chelsea would be 36, probably 36, 37 years, not one argument they've witnessed. And
Wow.
that,
Mm.
right. And so I say that to say, you know what? I did come from a place of being celebrated, and that was anchored in me. And it had to be in order to, I think, keep that place of gratitude and joy in my heart, regardless of the stuff. But what you're having this conversation, it's so interesting to see, like, because we know each other so well, right? The different nuances and opportunities we've had to heal little bits and pieces, right? Like
Mhm.
after that fifth grade event, I told you it, so sixth, seventh, eighth grade, I ran track and I had this, I don't mean this in any arrogance at all, but everything that I've done pretty well. And so I'm really, and I'm not talking about the relationships, but I mean like in business or like in track, gymnastics, I trophied, I medaled,
Mhm.
softball, all this stuff. Well, here's what happened. And I may have shared this with you, but I know I haven't with your audience. So I played softball and I was on the girls team, the city, all the things you do, you sign up for and your parents sign you up for. And I was so good at it that the parents petitioned that I not get to play, for me to play on the boys' little league.
Oh,
Now, right. Thank you. See that
what?
face?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I,
Right. I'm like,
now,
oh, that's interesting.
right. For some, and I didn't have to, I got to stay with the girls, but all I heard was not that you're so good, they want you to play with the boys. And never mind the dynamics
Sure,
of versus girls, all that. This was years ago. All I heard was they don't want me. Right? Now, fast
sure.
forward to this other going on at the same time, I'd win
Mhm.
like at track meets, I'd win at this, I'd win at that. But when I'd cross that finish line, there's my family, rah, 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 all
Yeah.
that. But I'd see my friends' parents and their families sad face. So I equated when you win,
Oh,
make others sad.
yeah.
You show up, Cindy, you get in trouble. When you
Mhm.
sparkle, so what was my biggest fear? Fear of success.
Sure,
Fear of
sure.
success equates fear of rejection and abandonment, right? Because then you don't have, right? Well, so what did I do? I started slowing down just a teeny bit. And I couldn't do it every race because it was against everything inside of me. But I would slow down and let other people win on purpose. Let some of my friends win. Like right,
Yeah.
like I just kind of lean back so they can lean forward. Stephen Crawford said, "Oh, you were losing to win." Yeah,
Mm,
I was, right? And
yeah.
but I didn't realize that until a few years ago, I had this, epiphany that, and it shifted everything for me. The parents weren't sad that I won. They were
Mhm.
bummed that their child didn't.
Sure.
Whole different frequency though,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because then it wasn't, that Cindy Gould won again, or whatever. It was, dang it, Julie didn't win or Kareen
Yeah.
didn't. Bummer,
Yeah.
she's worked so hard, that kind of feeling. But when that happened, I almost felt like a timeline cleaned up for me, right? Like that,
Yeah.
it was almost like, like taking all the barnacles off.
Yeah.
Like,
When you can see it, right? When you can see it through differently, right? Yeah, because in anything, right? That shift in perspective, right? If I can see something differently and I can see it through that lens of love,
Mhm.
right? The love that they had for their kids was that
Right.
they were, they were disappointed that their kid didn't win, right? It wasn't about you. But I think it's human nature. We tend to make everything about us, right? We give it meaning, we make it about us. And it's like, but it's not, right? That grimace, I think we, as women, right? You think that woman, as teenage girls, maybe more so, that girl, she doesn't like me. And it's like, how do you know she doesn't like me? She's making a face. How do you know she just doesn't have gas? You know what I mean? We don't know, right? I mean, it's like, but you
Right,
know, we can be
right.
make it like she hates me. She's like, she's listening, she's not even looking at you. And so when you go through these processes that we've been through, it's like you realize nothing anybody else does is about you because as a human being, we're very self-focused. And so we're moving forward and it's about us. But we can sure make a lot of stuff about us and then it can make us miserable. And it's
Right.
like that's not even, it's just so not healthy. But you had gone through a whole process here, obviously. What did that look like for you?
Well, part of it is I really had to learn, and you only learn this, in my opinion, through stuff that sucks. But
Yeah,
I really had to learn to see things. You said this earlier about lenses. See things through the lens of my heart and not the lens of my wounds.
mm,
That was a big deal. And I didn't know in the beginning, years ago, how to do that. But forgiveness had to be a big thing. For
sure.
instance, I had to forgive different adults, like even the guy that slammed me. I don't even know his
Yeah,
name, the
yeah,
shopkeeper.
right,
But I drove past that uh, middle school earlier this year, and I didn't even anything but happy feelings, and
sure. That's good.
I, yeah, but I really had to learn to have forgiveness, um, even for myself. Like the first time that I was sexually abused, I remember on the way to the place I was going before it happened, I had a nudge in my spirit, like God put a nudge in my spirit, don't go, go home. Well, I was
Mm,
10. So I dismissed that because where I was going was supposed to be fun and all these good
yes.
things with good
Mhm.
people and whatever. And that isn't the experience I had. Now, I say that because I really looked at, like, even the people that were involved. I looked at, the bishop in my life at the time. I looked at other grown-ups and the hurtful things that they said that really injured me at the time, and yet realized, you know what? They were speaking through their wounds, their fears, their
Yep. Mhm.
and their and they thought they were right, and that's okay. It's
Mhm.
okay. Like, I didn't need to pursue anybody or have conversations or any of that because it just didn't matter. Like, what the conversation that mattered for me was the conversation I had with God and with myself.
Yeah.
Like, hey, so how are you going to show up, Cindy? And how can I use this? Like, fast forward to now,
Mhm.
I use this to be a blessing to others because literally you experience things in your life and you have a choice. Like, is it something where you can open a door, unlock a lock, open a heart of another
Mhm.
person because you're here in the footprints and they're right here and you can be like, come on, baby, and is this a place where you can go surfing? I mean, is it right? Is there
Sure.
an opportunity here? And you don't have to walk through every opportunity either. And you don't have to walk around, who can I do that with or whatever. But when it shows up, you get to choose. Hey, you know
Mhm.
what? I had an experience like that. This is what happened for me, and this is what I did. Maybe that will help you, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? Because I know you do that in your life.
Yeah. Right. We're walking the journey and
Mm.
um the wisdom that we gain all through life, right? When we get to be this age, we have walked through a lot of fires, walked
Right.
through a lot of things, a lot of growth process here. Very intentional growth process. I know for myself for the last 20 years, right? Just very intentional. It would take the wisdom that we've gained along the way, For me, I think if I were to look at like one of the biggest things I believe missing is that those shared spaces where, um, families used to come together and the elders had the wisdom and you would glean the wisdom. And, so many of those spaces have disappeared. And so our youth are really looking for, um, they're looking for that wisdom, right? And to be able to share it and get out there and use your voice. And that's the whole purpose of the Secret Keepers is to allow people to see that you're not probably what you're walking through. Somebody on this podcast has walked through something very similar. And you can, gain wisdom just from listening, so we get to share these stories. And speaking of wisdom, um,
Mhm.
in all the wisdom that you've gained, can you just share with us like one little juicy nugget that you kind of hold near and dear to your heart, that you're like, this is the most important thing I want the listeners of the Secret Keepers podcast to know?
Mm. That each one of us is divinely created and that we have a purpose. And I believe you and I talked about this before we climbed on today, that there was a big powwow and we sat with God and whoever else was supposed to be at that meeting, different people we'd meet here, whoever it is, people that were here before us. And that we all said, hey, when she gets here, she's going to meet Kareen and this is what's going to happen. And then, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
they get to do this together. And this might hurt you, but please listen for us because we're going to help you use it as a springboard to get here. And I say that to say alignment. When you're in alignment with your assignment and you walk out what God's purposed you to do, just trust that. Trust that. And
Mhm.
because deep down inside, there's this, scripture that says a peace that passes all understanding. That doesn't mean like when you and I stand up to speak at an event and we might have a little bit of nervousness or whatever, but we know we're supposed to be there.
Mhm.
You don't say, I'm not going to be there because you have a little bit of nervousness. You dig deep into the deep of your soul and you feel that peace. That's,
Yeah.
that's it. I would say pursue peace, but you know what? Really? Okay, this is what's coming up. So I'm just going to throw this out there.
Yeah.
The other day I had an endoscopy, which was so great. And people don't say they're great, but they ask you all the questions. And I said, well, actually, I haven't had a cold in over 35 years. I had two people ask me on the same day, and I said the same thing. Both of them asked me the same question. Oh my gosh, what's your secret? And they're both in the medical. One was the anesthesiologist and one was the registrant. And before I could even say another word, the word gratitude came out.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
said, gratitude will heal, it'll change your DNA, it'll heal everything. If you're constantly in a place of gratitude,
Mhm.
constantly, then you tend to stay in alignment with.
Yeah. Can you see the gift? I think that people lose that, right? It's like when something bad happens to us in that moment, it can be difficult to see that there's some sort of wisdom to be gleaned from this situation. But if I can look at it and then see the gift and have gratitude for, how did this push me, you know, how, and maybe pull me more so than push, me forward in my life? How did I grow through this season of, this thing that happened? So the trials and the tribulations of our life, I can look at it and I can be Eeyore, maybe woe is me,
Wow.
or right, or I can be like, you know what? Yeah, that sucked. It really did, right? And be honest about it.
Oh yeah.
And you know what happened? I grew. Like
Mhm.
I learned this and this and this. And I definitely can say that about my own life. I know you can say it about yours. Like we're here and we're serving in the way that we serve now
Mhm.
because of, not in spite of, but because of the things that we've been through and the journeys that we've had. And having that gratitude for that, like I can look at it and I can see the gift. Did, those things that they hurt in that moment, they did. And I can see how I'm a much better person now
Right.
because I've been able to shift that perspective of it and say, you know what? I survived.
You thrived
I
too.
thrived.
You
Yep,
thrived too.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I love too
exactly.
is that it increases, and I know it's done the same thing for you. The things that you've experienced, it deepens our capacity to love others and to love ourselves,
Oh,
which
absolutely.
makes your life so much richer.
Yeah,
It's like we talked about celebration, and I know I'm privileged to have grown up in a family like that.
yeah,
Consequently, I celebrate the heck out of my family. And
yeah.
at my age, my mother and my father, when he was alive, and my siblings still celebrate me. Like, I
Mm,
mean, still do. And I fly clear across
yeah,
the country to watch my son Nicholas in his jujitsu,
yeah,
still, right? And I'm the loud
yeah,
mom and the whole thing. And it's like, but you and I have aligned ourselves with Joseph McClendon III, who
yeah,
built his whole everything on celebration, right? And
right.
so
Mhm.
I think that's really a powerful thing.
It
Like,
is.
celebrate the heck out of you, even if you maybe were slow to the party getting it right, or maybe you didn't get it right, but you still didn't say everything you were going to say to slaughter that person. You know what I mean? Just every
Yeah.
tiny thing.
Any step forward, and any step forward, you're right, in progress, because
Right.
failure, we're going to all fail. And one of my mentors would say, you need to fail every day. If you're not failing every day, then
Yeah,
you're not trying something new, right? Then you're staying in your comfort zone.
right.
And so you need to fail every day. And
Right.
with this particular, mentor, I was like on top of a telephone pole, and he's, like, do you want to stand on it? No, I don't want to stand on it. Do you want to sit on it? Yep, I want to sit. Okay, but then I'm feeling around. I'm like, my butt's too big. And it's like, stop it, like, okay. So then I get up there, I get like a part of my butt cheek up there, and he's on there. Yes, yes, celebrating every little thing. And so that kind of, it's so stuck in my head now, is that every little butt cheek movement is to be celebrated, right? Because I moved my butt. I moved my
But we
butt,
both,
you know.
we both have ample
So,
butt.
so it's like, but that's success, right? But
Yeah.
we think that, we get this in our head. And I think with the social media and all the stuff is like, oh, it's got to be this like moon jumping, you got to be making these big leaps and bounds in order for it to be count as success. And it's like, I showed up today,
Yes.
and sometimes just in that's my best today, as I showed up,
Yes.
every other day you're going to get a whole lot better version, but maybe today just showing up was that best, and in that success. But right, just keep moving forward, taking a step, and is there anything else that you would like to offer the audience here today? We could go on
When you said
forever.
that, well, I know. Well, when you said that I showed up, I was thinking of a client of mine, and we celebrated the fact that she took a shower and didn't baby wipe it. Didn't baby wipe herself, and
Yeah.
and that's huge. Like,
Yes,
and sometimes it
I've
literally,
been there.
right, we both have
I've
it.
been
And sometimes maybe it's, that you went home and you made, even if it was hamburger helper,
there.
you didn't do Taco Bell. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like that,
right.
those kind of things. But the thing that I would say, if to leave everybody with, is, what? Show, step up, show up, and speak up in your life.
Yeah.
Really go back and rescue that child,
Mm,
wherever that child was, if it was the one that got thrown up against the lockers, if it's the
sure.
one that
Yeah.
was, did whatever, the one that had her heart broken from the stupid boyfriend
Oh,
who was getting beat up at home and you didn't know, you know what I
mm,
mean?
yeah.
Wherever that is, grab that child, love the heck out of that child, and then skip down the road. Let's
Yeah.
go, you know?
Yeah,
So thank you
exactly.
for having me. I love you so
Uh,
much.
Cindy, please tell the audience how they can find you.
Oh gosh. So Cindy Gould, Facebook, you'll see my face. But also the Victory Network on Facebook. Come join my group. Let me know you saw me from Kareen's podcast. I would love, I've got some fun things coming up. So just climb on the Victory Network and you'll see Corrine there too. And we'll have a blast.
Beautiful. Yep. And I will drop all of Cindy's information in the show notes. And thank you for being on the Secret Keepers podcast.
Thanks for having me. Love you.
Love you.
Thank you for joining the Secret Keepers podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a like and follow so we can invite you back. And if you just want more, visit CorrineZuleger.com. Remember, you're not alone.